Hey everyone, this is Mason, and you're listening to Herb Rally. Today's episode is another edition of the Herbalist Hour, and this time I'm joined by my good friend Mel Mutterspaugh. So Mel is the founder of the Herbalist Path and the host of the podcast with the same name. I've actually been interviewed on that show before, so be sure to go and hit pause and go and subscribe to the Herbalist Path on your podcast player of choice. She's also the former owner of Mountain Mel's Tea Company. You may have seen Mel at various herb conferences over the years. That's how we originally met, but we get into a little bit about that in the podcast episode itself. And in this conversation, we chat about how she got into herbalism, who some of her mentors have been, her journey with her incredibly popular tea brand, Mountain Mel's, plantain, rosemary, thyme, her love of ashwagandha, and a whole lot more. It's always great to catch up with Mel. She's so knowledgeable, fun, and she's a great storyteller. I know you're going to love this one. And if you do, please consider leaving us some sort of ranking and review in your podcast player of choice. It would really mean a lot to us. And before we get into the show, I'd love to shout out our presenting sponsor, and that is, of course, Oshala Farm. So Oshala Farm is a certified organic farm based in Southern Oregon where they grow and sell over 80 medicinal plant species. So if you're looking to purchase organic dried herbs that have been grown in the U.S., look no further than Oshala Farm at oshalafarm.com. The owners, Elise and Jeff Higley, have been longtime friends, so I highly trust their growing methods and ethics. They also have various tea blends, elixirs, fire cider. They actually have organic hydrosols now as well that they create right there on their farm. So one more time, learn more about Oshala Farm at oshalafarm.com. Also, a huge shout out and thank you to our Herb Rally Schoolhouse members. Your support really means the world to us. We couldn't do it without you. If you'd like to learn more about the Herb Rally Schoolhouse, simply go to herbrally.com/schoolhouse. There's private member area. There's a bunch of classes in there, and you're also able to join us live on the Herbalist Hour if they're done on Zoom. So learn more at herbrally.com/schoolhouse. Use coupon code podcast at checkout to get your first 30 days for free. Other than that, life is good. It's a whole 1 degrees here in Appleton, Wisconsin today. But yeah, yesterday we went out and inner tubed in the snow, went downhill pretty fast. It was a lot of fun. Actually, the other day we recorded our 100th episode of the Herbalist Hour with Christosina Dinos. She was our guest host, and we chatted for about 2 hours and 15 minutes or so. So stay tuned for that episode. Should be launching February 2nd on our YouTube channel as well as the podcast. So if you're not already subscribed to us on YouTube, definitely head on over to our YouTube channel. We've been coming out with new videos every single day, herbalism videos every day. So please give us a subscribe over there as well as the podcast. And all right, that's going to do it for me today. Hope all is well, and we'll talk to you very, very soon. Bye.
Welcome to the Herbalist Hour. This is where community gather, merging the power of people and the flowers, the sweet and the bitter to the salty, the sour. Umami, it's time for the Herbalist Hour.
I got my Hawthorne infusion here.
Nice. I'm just straight water at the moment, but I do
I got some
have
of that too.
a little tincture that has hawthorn, milky oats,
Awesome.
ashwagandha, and St. John's wort in it.
You love your ashwagandha, I know that much.
Oh man, I sure do. It
Great.
loves me too.
All righty. Well, we'll get it rolling. Welcome back to the Herbalist Hour. Today, I'm really excited to have on my good friend, Mel Mutterspaugh. Welcome to the show, Mel.
So much, Mason. It's always so much fun to get to chat with you.
You know, I was on your show. That was several months back now, maybe even a year ago now. So if you're not already subscribed to the Herbalist Path on your podcast player of choice, go ahead and hit pause here and subscribe to the Herbalist Path. There's probably a lot of overlap between our audiences, but you never know. Mel has a podcast called The Herbalist Path. She's also got like a website called The Herbalist Path. She teaches mamas how to use herbs. And I'm sure we'll get to a little bit of that. But for now, you know, I've known Mel probably for at least a decade now, I'd imagine. But yeah. I don't know if I know the story. In fact, I was reading your bio before we jumped on the call. It says you were born in Germany. So I'm just kind of curious what you were like as a kiddo and how you kind of fell into this whole herbalism thing.
Yeah, what was I like as a kiddo? I was recently having this talk with my daughter, who happens to be really, really shy. And most people look at me and do not at all think of me as a shy being, but I was once a shy being. So I was very much a little tomboy, and I loved to play outside and make mud pies all of the time. And I loved to play sports. And I was that little girl, just like, let me be outside. And I think when I was young that I had any clue I was going to be an herbalist. I don't even think I knew that was going to come until, gosh, into my 30s, I would say. But when I look back on it and I think about, like, my business name is the Herbalist Path and it's very path oriented, I always wanted to be a teacher. I wanted to do something good for the world. I fell in love with nature the more and more I had time to be out in nature. And I actually moved around a lot as a young child. So, very nomadic by by nature for sure.
Yeah.
But I've been in Oregon for a very, very long time now. But anyways, I fell in love with nature. And I remember at one point I was living in Georgia and I was looking through the NUNM paper catalogs because this is in the 90s. And I was like, ooh, being a naturopath would be really magnificent. I had no idea at all. And I ended up buying a 1978 Volkswagen Westfalia out of the junkyard and rebuilding it from the ground up with my boyfriend at the time. And we took a 6-month drive across the country from Atlanta up to New York through like all the Midwest back through Nebraska where I used to live. And then once we hit Colorado, it was all dirt roads from there. And I thought maybe one day I'll become a naturopath because it just sounded really cool. I didn't. I ended up going to school for environmental and experiential education. And I really just wanted to connect more people with the beauty of nature, right? Like nothing made me feel more like, wow, mind blown and like in awe, like the total definition of the word awe. And so I ended up becoming a backpacking guide and a wilderness therapist because I would do anything to get paid to be outside, right?
Totally.
And because what a cool job, like pay me to walk you beautiful places, sure. And it was when I was doing that I recognized so many people had nasty toxic stuff in their first aid kits and their backpacks. And I was like, well, that's not right. I don't like this at all. It really, really chapped my hide at that time. And this was like the late 1900s, late 1990s and early 2000s. And at that point, I had this dream, like, wouldn't it be cool to get a first aid kit into everybody's backpack that was more natural, like everybody that loved to play outside? This is what I want to do. I didn't know what that was going to take. Like I started reading books and absorbing all the books and trying other people's recipes and handwriting all my labels and passing them around my community. And people were loving what I was creating. And I was like, that's cool. And I started going to like little skincare retreats at Brighton Bush and all these little things. And I can look back on it and how it all has evolved has been a pretty cool story and a meandering path for sure. And then I started taking online courses. Back then, they were not amazing, but they got better.
Were they herbalism courses?
Yeah. Back then, herbalism and skincare business and things like that I was doing. And I fell into my product line, which is how we met, Mountain Mel's, which I no longer run. Very long story short, did get those first aid kits into REI eventually after an 18-year manifestation.
I remember that.
Yeah.
That was exciting.
It was super exciting. It was also one of the hardest things I've ever done in business. Totally. And I ran my own herbal apothecary. What else did I do? Oh, I went to more in-person herb schools. I went to the Brighton Bush Herbal Conference, and that's where I was like, oh my gosh, my first one there. I was like, these are my people. This is what I want to be when I grow up. And gosh, yeah, I dove in head first from there and started doing in-person schools and went to the Elderberry School of Botanical Medicine in Portland. And then I wanted to know more about the science, like why do these herbs work on the human body? What's really going on here? And I went to Portland School of Traditional Western Herbalism. I opened up my own herbal apothecary tea and smoothie shop, and now I teach herbalism.
Which is what, knowing you for so long, I remember every time I'd see you at a trade show, you were always the most excited about teaching herbs, but you were so all in on Mountain Mel's tea that it was kind of difficult for you to do that. Just kind of rewinding a little bit, I'm just kind of curious. You mentioned the Brighton Bush Herbal Conference. Do you recall that first one that you went to? Do you remember any of the teachers that were there and like what kind of influence they had on you?
Yeah. There was Rosemary
Oh,
Gladstar.
wow.
There was Christopher Hobbs. There was
Wow.
Tim Blakely. There was Kim uh, uh, Green. James Green was there, and
Oh, yeah.
Mindy Green, not Kim. I don't know where Kim was coming from, but it was definitely a reunion
Yeah.
one. I think one of those was a really special one for me as well, because I had been diving into books, and my curiosity was there, and I was doing some online courses, but I didn't know anybody at the conference or anything about it. Like, I didn't know I was going to be an herbalist. I had no idea. And even though I was doing herbalist things, and I kind of decided to go on a total whim, like 2 weeks beforehand. And I was already making my products and passing them around. I was dreaming of getting them into new seasons and things like that. And when I went there, Jody Berry of Wild Carrot Herbals, if you know her, was there on the back deck and with her products. And I had been following her and dreamily like admiring her and like, I want to be like that. And got to chat with her. And I just remember like being so like, this is so great. And we just hung out a bunch. I was so curious about like how to do labels. Labels were probably one of the hardest things I ever had to get through. And that was just beautiful, because about a year or two later, I did get into new seasons. And when I got into new seasons, like I remember talking with Cindy Young, was their wellness buyer. And that was another funny thing too. Like, I submitted my first aid goods, but I gifted her my herbal teas in my meeting. And she was like, oh, you do medicinal herbal teas. Great. We'll take those too. And I'm like, really? Okay. But Cindy was like, you really remind me of Jody Berry. And from then on, like, people would just always say that. And so it was always a very neat thing. So many little like full circle moments have happened on this path.
Totally. Yeah. The herbalist path, if you will.
Yes, exactly.
Were you always known as Mountain Mel? How'd you get that nickname?
Oh, goodness. You might appreciate this one. I was not always known as Mountain Mel, and sometimes I always feel funny about that name. Do you know the band Fruition?
I do. They're kind of like reggae-ish, right?
I go more bluegrass. Like,
oh, then I guess I don't. I know. Well, I definitely know the name. Okay, yeah, I know the name for sure.
They're on Spotify these days and all that stuff. But Mimi is a mandolin player for them, and they used to play at the bar I worked at up on Mount Hood.
Oh, wow.
And we would party late night hours, and Mimi was like, "You're Mountain Mel." And it's been that ever since. So, yeah.
So, what made you land on living in Oregon out of all the places you've been? Why'd you fall in love with the Pacific Northwest?
When I was a kid, I did most of my growing up around Nebraska, which is very boring. At the time, I left Nebraska. Right before then, my sister and her still husband came out to Oregon for a few dead shows and fell in love with it. And they moved here. When they did their move, I moved to Georgia. I was still a teen at that time, and I worked for an airline, so I could fly anywhere in the world for $20, which was a pretty rad job. And I flew out to Oregon for my 18th birthday and did a bunch of hot springs tours and cruised around. We went down to San Francisco for a bridge school benefit show with Neil Young, and I went to Silver Falls. If you've never been there, or you probably have, you're from Oregon, but I went there and I just remember just being totally blown away and my heart literally jumping out of my chest and landing in the South Falls pool. And I said, okay, I'm moving here. And I did a year and a half later in that 78 Volkswagen Westfalia that I built from the ground up.
That's amazing. Did you ever go to Cougar Hot Springs?
Oh yeah, of course.
Okay, of course. Yeah, that's the local staple. Yeah,
for sure. And I know it's a much more populated place than it was back then. So I moved out here in 99. And again, took a long road trip to get here. But I had a job when I got here and I had a place to stay and landed in Eugene. Actually, no tie of all places.
It
was supposed to be Lowell, but things happened while we were on the road and it ended up being no tie. And
Just a quick break from the show to thank our presenting sponsor, Oshala Farm. Oshala Farm is a beautiful and vibrant certified organic herb farm based in Southern Oregon, where they grow and sell over 80 different plant species. The founders, Elise and Jeff Higley, have been longtime friends, so I highly trust their growing methods and ethics. You'll love the potency and vibrancy of all the herbs they have to offer. To learn more and purchase their herbs and other organic goods, head to oshalafarm.com. So thanks once again to Oshala Farm for sponsoring the Herbalist Hour. Now back to the show. Enjoy. I would love to have you shout out some of your like herbal mentors. It sounds like you went to the elderberry school in Portland. Is that where you'd accredit most of your herbal education to? It's the folks over there?
I would say I learned even more so at the Portland School of Traditional Western Herbalism.
Gotcha.
That school was really amazing because I got to meet a lot of the plants. I got to understand when to harvest them at their peak at their medicinal potency. Scott Close was an amazing spiritual mentor. I really started getting into there and falling in love with the plants and what they can do. And Scott will actually be on my podcast this week.
Nice.
I interview him. So
awesome.
For the second time. So I can have you again for the second time.
Yeah, great.
So that was definitely wonderful for me. It was also a bit of a challenge because, how do I say this in the most lovely of ways? It was a little too hippy-dippy for me. Sure. And like I lived out in the mountains on 10 acres surrounded by 64,000 acres of wilderness. And I would drive to the city to go drive to another nature-y spot. And they would say, here's how we commune with nature. I'm like, but I do that every day.
Yeah,
you know? Right. So I wanted to know more of the science. And that's where I went to the Portland School of Traditional Western Herbalism, which rocked my world because Chris Smaka, who's no longer with us, brought in some of the best herbal teachers on our continent, from Chantal Cabrera to Seven Song to Jim McDonald to Lydia Bartholo. I always pronounce her name wrong.
I say Bartholo, but yeah.
Thank you. And gosh, just so many amazing people. Larkin Bunce, Paul Bergner. Paul is like still to this day, one of my favorite teachers to continuously learn from. I feel like there's never enough. There's never enough herb learning, right? Like there's always so much.
Well, I was recently watching one of your Instagram shorts or whatever you want to call it. Yeah. So by the way, dear listener, go follow Mel on TikTok. She's got like 80,000 followers there, I want to say. And then I think 30,000 on the Instagrams. But you were talking about one of your recent Instagram posts about what type of herbalist do you want to be? And you were essentially saying kind of what you're saying here is like, well, do you want to be more on the woo-woo side or learn more of the science side? That it kind of define your goal first and then base your herbal education around that. And one of the best ways you could do that is by listening to, say, Mel's podcast, The Herbalist Path, because then you get like a taste of a lot of different herbalists and kind of feel out their, their specialties and whatnot. Did I paraphrase appropriately?
I think that's great. I'm like, wait, you were watching what did I say on those? Because there's so many. You just you forget what you're saying on social media. I know I say herbs.
Right. You were essentially talking about if someone wants to be an herbalist, what path would they take type of thing.
Right.
And yeah, you were.
And there are so many paths. That's exactly it. Like just listening to my story right now, how many directions have I gone? Yeah. And I think it's also beautiful to dance the woo with the science because it's real. The science is real. And so is the woo and the lore and the history. Like there's a lot of reasons why the scientists are not going to be paid to do the studies on many of the herbs that have worked for all of our ancestors for thousands of years. So you have to dance that together.
That's why I love herbalists, because they really do balance out the woo and the science. And some of my favorite herbalists are like, say, herbalists / nurses. They have a strong background in the sciences and whatnot, but they still get kind of witchy and whatnot.
I love that too. And that's what I've been discovering. It's so beautiful in my Apothecary Mama program. Like I have so many nurses out of the people that are in there. There's over 12 people that are nurses and there's only like 120 altogether. Yeah. There's no other career demographic that is duplicated in my small, intimate little membership. So
interesting.
Isn't that great? I love
Yeah,
it though, because it
that is
means
so
that
cool.
more and more of those people are coming together. So,
Absolutely.
yeah.
Well, I would like to delve more into Apothecary Mama and the herbalist path, but before we do that, I would love to hear more about your journey with Mountain Mel's. I mean, you invested so much time into that business and brand, and it's how I initially got to know you, as we mentioned earlier. But like, I would like to hear about your path, some of the challenges, and then also how you made the decision to essentially. I don't know if you sold it or not, but like how you decided to just move on to the next chapter of your life and the difficulty with that, because I could only imagine how hard of a decision that must have been to have made.
Super hard,
Yeah.
super duper hard. That whole journey was beautiful and filled with so many highs and lows, which I think the entire journey of entrepreneurship is.
Yeah.
I never resonated with the word entrepreneur, but apparently I am one.
Yep.
I am like guilty of like, oh, I've got an idea, let's do it. Oh, I've got an idea,
Totally.
let's do it. Um, so again, I started Mountain Mel's out of pure passion. I just wanted to save the world with herbs. That's all I wanted to do. No biggie, right?
Right.
just minor goals in the world. And so I started doing that. I started handwriting labels. I learned everything the very long and hard way. I achieved many things from the outside that people would say, wow, how freaking successful. Like, that's amazing for an herbalist business. And truth be told, I had no freaking clue what I was doing with business.
Yeah.
No clue at all. And like, I remember learning how to shift all my recipes from a teaspoon and a cup of this to like, here's a spreadsheet, here's grams versus and milliliters versus ounces and teaspoons and whatnot. And learning how to use a spreadsheet, figuring out the labels. My gosh, labels were the worst for me forever.
Yeah.
Learning the art of letting go. If there's one huge lesson I could take out of that whole 12 plus year experience is team. You are not the one that does everything the best, and figure out where you are really great. So
Totally.
Yeah, it was a wild, wild ride. I ended up also like it started in my home, right? A tiny little office like I'm in right now, and expanded to the kitchen and then to the shops in the outbuildings. And then finally, once I got into New Seasons Market, for those listeners not from Oregon, it's a natural health food store in Portland,
I love that
Oregon.
store.
I do too, very
Yeah.
much. And so it was huge for me to get in there. And it gave me this feeling of like credibility. Wow, the wellness department is keeping my teas in stock. And I hand labeled all of my products until like the last year of my business.
Wow.
Don't do that. Do not do that. I have like a whole long list of what not to do if you are interested in running your own herbal products business, which also comes with a lot of what you could do. What else? What else? So yeah, I did a lot of wholesale. I was in market of choice. I got into REI, which was super huge. And that was a whole nother like beastly story in and of itself that's filled with magic and heartache all in one. And gosh, struggles. Wholesale is a struggle. Handwriting all your labels is a struggle. Learning to run a business with a toddler on your side is a struggle. The highs of like getting to these epic places and meeting new people and hearing from people how much my products help them, like that's intoxicating. That is beautiful. That is like worth everything. And I think the thing that kept me going the longest was just that I'm a very stubborn individual. Very stubborn. I'm very determined. And I'm like, you will not tell me I will not succeed. Like I am going for it. And I did. And I did a lot of fake it till you make it. I met Mason at a lot of bigger trade shows where I probably shouldn't have had my tiny little business at. But I did.
Stretch yourself.
Yeah, I did that a lot. And gosh, the decision to not do it, quite frankly, I wasn't making money. And to do that for that long and struggle so hard, I remember in like 2017, I had just gotten another big account, and a good friend of mine was like, dude, Mel, you are straight crushing it. I had my Apothecary tea and smoothie shop open at that time. I was still trying to do darn near everything. I had people making smoothies in the shop and whatnot, but still trying to run all the other aspects of this like business that kept growing. And I just didn't know what to do, like how to scale things.
Yeah.
But I kept pretending like I did. Does that make sense?
Yeah, you're talking a lot about the struggles, and thank you for sharing all this. I'm wondering, was any part of the struggle also the fact that in the back of your mind or in your soul, you actually wanted to teach?
I love that you asked that, Mason, and that you brought that up. That's kind of what shifted everything. So I was working with somebody who's amazing, that I love very much, and she was like, she was like, what are you doing right now? Like, I know you want to teach, and I had started to teach, and I was still running the product line. She's like, do you ever think that maybe you want to give one of these up? Like,
Yeah.
and I had to go to the river because that's where I love to meditate and really figure things out. And Chris and I, my partner, had gone back and forth, like, do we let it go? No, we can't. It's so much of my identity. How could I ever let go of my identity? And I really had to get to the why of what I do. And it's because I do want to save the world, right? But I get so high and intoxicated when it comes to teaching people about herbs. And I love to do that. I love to do that. And that is my gift.
Yeah.
So why am I running myself crazy doing all of the other things? And it was a very sudden decision, kind of like, all right, I'm doing it. 2 months, landlord, I'm moving out. Maybe I'll start it up again. I still have the company name and brand and whatnot, which I don't know, maybe I could have done something smarter with that, but hard to give up your name.
Right. Well, I went to mountainmel's.com and it rerouted me to the herbalistpath.com, which was good call.
Yeah. Thankfully, I had a gal that was like, hey, why don't we reroute this? And I'm like, oh, right. Yeah, you're smart. Thank you. I do miss making the products sometimes. Like, I know I made really great products, and I have people reaching out to me multiple times a week asking me for those products. And I'm like, I'm sorry, I don't make them anymore, but I can teach you how to make them.
Right.
So,
Totally.
yeah. That's a great question. Yeah, I love teaching. I think when I was at events with you, like, that's what I loved. I'm talking to people and teaching them about herbs and how they can help people. And those times I would really shine, and
Totally.
it just had to be getting back to the root and the why. Like, and I wanted to spend more time with my daughter.
Amen. Well, and it's difficult to do both if you do have a product line, because it's hard to talk about the herbs in a compliant way when you're selling the product. You don't want to be making any sort of drug claims or anything like that. So now you have almost free reign in a way. I mean, I know you're educated and you're very conservative at the same time. You're not,
Right.
You're safe with your teaching, but like you can't really do as much when you're selling the product for internal use.
That was another really great perk too. Like, I'm like, oh, I can start telling people what's going on. Like, I don't have to lie to you or be like, I can still use my witty ways, but I can like let you know what's really happening with these herbs and not worry about getting in trouble from the FDA.
Yeah.
But yeah, also still doing it in a safe manner, not like, this herb is going to heal your whole world.
Right. Well, events have come up a couple times, and I was originally going to ask this, but came to mind. So just for those out there that are listening and do have, like, say, a product line, like they sell tinctures or teas or whatnot, do you recommend folks go to trade shows, herb conferences, have tables, that kind of thing? Was that a beneficial way to sell your product and market it?
I loved going to trade shows and events and conferences. It definitely got me a lot of wholesale accounts. So if you're looking to do wholesale, yes. I will also say that herb conferences aren't always the best places to sell your herb products. Like they're great places to network with people unless you have something really, really specific and niche.
Good
For
point.
me, the herb conferences were really great because I'm like, cool, this is on the business,
Right.
I can write that up and I can have a
Totally.
good time and meet great people. But it was never like a hugely profitable event. I really loved trade shows. It was great, but my personality also fits trade shows.
Good point.
They are very hard work, as you know, with all
Yeah.
those huge booths you set up for Mountain Rose Herbs. And if you get set up next to Mountain Rose Herbs with your herb product company at a trade show, it could be a detriment. No, it wasn't.
I was going to say, is it a good thing or a bad thing? Probably.
Yeah, I mean, it's not always the best thing, but it was
Right.
super fun anyways. I could make
Totally.
good of it. It was
Right.
always a good, fun show anyway. So
Right.
I loved the trade shows. I will say I did go to Expo West too early in my journey, not really fully prepared for that.
Yeah.
That's a whole nother level of trade show.
Yeah.
So
One of
you
which
got
I've
lots
never
of
been
money,
to. Right.
yeah, that's the other thing is like, I think I would have had a lot less struggle if I had a lot of money backing me.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, and that's it takes capital to grow your business unless
Yes,
you do
but
it nice and slow.
I don't remember the fees for Expo West, but that was like, holy shit, that's a lot of money. Not to mention the travel, the hotel, and so on and so forth. So, yeah.
I did get some pretty special grants to go. So like I had a 2 foot section where I got to share my stuff with the state of Oregon. So I'm not saying I paid for a full Expo West booth. No way.
Right.
No way. But still, you're traveling, you're bringing someone down there to help you. You've got your hotel, you've got food, you've got all the things. So
Totally.
Yeah, live and learn.
That's right. That's the name of the game and this entrepreneurial path.
A jump first and then think about it kind of person. And maybe I'll grow out of that in my older age. Maybe I won't.
Yeah, I think it's a positive thing. I would say I'm pretty similar too. You jump in and then you learn along the way, because otherwise I would just overthink everything and just take way too long and never actually do anything. So
yeah, there's a lot to be said about that. And I always laugh at that because I went to school for experiential education, like learning by doing. And then I'm like, what am I going to school for this for when I can go do it?
Yeah.
So that was always a funny little thing. But
yeah, it's ironic.
I mean, you're going to learn one way or another. You can go to school for it. You can dive in head first and be like, well, that worked. That didn't.
Right.
Yeah.
Totally. Well, why don't we go for it.
Can I just one more thing on the business thing? I know many of your people might be listening. Like, there's so much greatness in having your herbal product line. Don't let my trials and tribulations scare you. Learn from them and do it. We need more herbal medicine makers out there, especially in your community. Like, we need people that make great remedies from the plants to make herbalism spread like wildflowers. So
hashtag.
Yeah, totally.
hashtag spread like wildflowers. That's your thing, I want to say.
Yeah, it is.
And there's this sunk cost fallacy. It could seem like you did all that work for nothing, but in all reality, it's made you who you are today. There's so much you learned. Now you're able to share it with the other medicine makers, and who knows, maybe you'll create a course on that in the herbalist path eventually, like how to do a herbal business of some sort. But
definitely in the pipeline.
Yeah, that's awesome, and I really appreciate your self-awareness. Like you said, you don't want to scare other people off, but maybe that's their purpose. Like you said, we need more medicine makers. Your purpose now is to teach, and you knew that. So good on you. Let's talk more about the herbalist path as well as Apothecary Mama. Can you tell us what your membership area is all about?
Yeah, so I have Apothecary Mamas, and it's an herbal mentorship for moms. So I've kind of set it up almost like it's an encyclopedia. There's many small lessons ranging from 5 to 25 minutes teaching you about the different ailments that, as moms and dads, yes, dads go through this too. But I'm a mom, so it was more of a marketing thing. I'll be very straightforward on that. And I love to help moms. So all the ailments that we have to face in parenthood, from having cankles in pregnancy or varicose veins to like what herbs are safe during breastfeeding, which there's all kinds of conflicting information on the internet, to colicky babies, to your teens going through their hormonal shifts, to oily acneic skin, to anxiety and ADHD. And in each of those lessons, we first talk about like, here's the ailment, here's what's going on in the body with this particular thing, because I think it's incredibly important to understand what's going on in the body before we're just like throw an herb on it,
Right.
which most people in our society are trained to want to throw an herb on it, or a pill on it is what we're trained.
Right.
We need to think differently with herbalism, right? So we talk about what's going on in the body, and then we talk about lifestyle shifts that could help. And then we talk about the different herbs that you might want to choose for those particular situations. I give out recipes for each of those. So that's like the never-ending encyclopedia library core stuff of the program. And then I bring in a guest teacher every month, some other brilliant herbalist, naturopath, pediatrician, somebody that teaches on their specific topic. Because again, going back to my herbal education at the Portland School of Traditional Western Herbalism, one of the greatest things was that I got to learn from so many amazing herbalists. And I'm certainly not the only one that knows anything. So I don't want my students thinking like everything Mel says, like
You're the guru.
Yeah, I'm not. I do love to share, but yeah. I love learning from others still too. So we do that. And then every month I do a deep dive workshop on some particular topic. And then we do live Q&As. So it's like having a clinical herbalist in your pocket. If something's going on, you can be like, what do I do here? Or, what about this? What about that? And then I've added in another like little thing that's kind of a side shoot, the Kid Safe Herb Club. So every month we're doing a deep dive study on one herb. And then we do herbal show and tell at the end of the month. So everybody's sharing what they learned and what they created and how they use that herb for the month, where I'm really trying to encourage my students to look at plants beyond the one thing they're known for. Like chamomile. What's everyone say when they hear about chamomile? Oh, it's the sleepy time herb. I take that when it's time to relax. But like, there's all these other ways you can use this beautiful plant, and you don't have to know 150 or 200 herbs to heal your family.
Right.
You can know a few of them very well. So that's a little mentorship in a nutshell. It's a beautiful community of mamas and grands, and a safe space to learn about natural healthcare and herbalism with your family. I kind of started it because when I remember being young in my motherhood journey and searching for answers and going to Facebook groups, and there'll be a mom like, oh my gosh, my kid has cradle cap. What do I do? And then there's like literally a thread of 150 different answers, most of which are not from any kind of healthcare professional. And then that sends that mom still stressed out and spiraling even further down that Dr. Google rabbit hole. And who's got time for that? So I wanted to create a safe space. And
I love that you created a business and a website that's basically what you wish existed in the world.
Thank you.
Yeah.
That's really, really nice.
Yeah.
I guess sometimes I don't even think about that. I'm just going for it,
Totally.
And trying to help in the ways that I can.
So Apothecary Mama is like under the Herbalist Path umbrella. Are there other things under the Herbalist Path umbrella as well?
Yeah, so I do medicine making mamas as well, which
right.
I consider taking the mamas out of that and some other M just because confusion. So medicine making mamas is like, here's the science and the folk behind making really great remedies and how to make them so they actually taste great. Because a lot of herbal products do not taste great. And if you have kids, you know that getting them to take something they don't like can be a struggle. Getting yourself to take something you don't like can be a struggle. And that's one of the things I always focused on at Mountain Mel, is like I made functional herbal teas that were really freaking delicious.
Yeah.
So that you can bring them into your body on a regular basis, on a day-to-day thing. And it's not torturous medicine taking, it's a lifestyle, right? So that's what I teach inside of there. We dive pretty deep into all the like what's soluble in what kind of extracts and all that kind of stuff, because there's a lot of people dabbling in the world of herbs, and I wish I could reach through the social media screens and just be like, hold on, you can't get those polysaccharides in your alcohol.
Well, with 80,000 TikTok followers, I'd say you're doing a pretty good job at doing that. Is the Medicine Making Mamas class, does that open like once a year, or is it evergreen?
It is evergreen, but I launch it twice a year.
Oh, okay.
So I'm actually, like, we were talking before the show really started, how like business is always evolving and you're testing and you're learning, and like, how can you serve your people best? And it is evergreen. So I'm about to put on actually this week, I re-record a new class entry into it that gets people a cool little discount after the class. And
oh, nice.
And then, I kind of do a quarterly launch, one or the other. But I'm doing something new that I didn't even tell you about when you reached out and asked. I'm hosting my first summit in Q1 of 2024, and I'm very excited about it. And it's just Holistically Healthy Family Summit. So I'll be bringing a lot of professionals in holistic healthcare from across the board, talking about how we can rely a lot less on big pharma and the drugstore shelves and do a lot to empower ourselves to take better care of our families. So.
Amazing. Who are some of the confirmed speakers so far?
I'm working on that this week.
Okay.
So I have a lot of really amazing list. And I'm so excited about it. It's a whole nother process I'd love to chat with. Probably not relevant to this show.
Okay.
Super, super neat. So I'm excited for it.
Well, this will probably be released maybe a few weeks after we record this. So if they want to learn more or register, would that be the herbalistpath.com to register? Or?
It'll be, I'm going to buy Holistically Healthy Families Summit.com, and then that will forward them to the herbalistpath.com Holistically Healthy Family Summit. So
perfect.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, earlier you mentioned you went with Apothecary Mama. Hopefully I paraphrase this correctly. You said you did that as a marketing thing, and I'm just kind of curious, is that you niching down, and would you recommend that to other herbal entrepreneurs?
Yes, it is me niching down. I wanted to step out from my colleagues that are also brilliant educators and all the herb schools out there. And I also saw a corner in the market that really needs this kind of thing. So I'm learning a lot as I go along with this. Right. Sometimes I wonder, did I niche down too much? When I first started it, my intention was not to get people that wanted to be herbalists, but to get moms that wanted to heal their families naturally in there. Right. And then of course they get in there and I'm going to teach them more than they thought they needed to know. But yeah, sometimes I wonder, because I do hear a lot of feedback like, oh, I'm not a mom. Oh, this, oh, that. I love learning from you, but I'm not this and I'm not that. And I'm like, did I niche down too much? I don't know. So a lot of businesses testing, tweaking, learning, and figuring it out as you go.
Yeah, so herb rallies. Go ahead. Sorry, Mel.
I do think niching is important, but really knowing your market is important as well. Like, I am very much like, I get all targeted for all the herbal programs on Facebook with ads and things like that. And I'm like, okay, I see what you guys are doing. I see what's going on over here. Yeah, it's an interesting way to go for sure.
Like you said, it's constant testing, and herb rallies, like almost you couldn't be more broad than what herb rally's doing. Like we're I guess our niche is trying to get as many voices as possible from every nook and cranny of the herbal community. But sometimes I wonder that.
Good job of.
Thank you. I'm trying. So we're constantly tweaking, trying to learn new things and continually iterate and improve. But all that to say, it's a learning journey. But I guess before we move on, I'm just curious, who was the last guest teacher you had inside of Apothecary Mama. What was the class about?
So our last guest teacher was amazing. Her name is Jacqueline Clemens, and she is this beautiful, powerful, brilliant postpartum doula. She came in to teach about nourishment during postpartum times, which I'll talk about again here or talk about more in just a moment. But she also founded this nonprofit that is amazing. And it's actually, she doesn't know this yet, but I'm about to let her know. She'll be a speaker in the Holistically Healthy Family Summit. And I think I'm going to have her nonprofit be one of the beneficiaries. So it's called Akionu. And what they do is support BIPOC families during the postpartum time. So they are creating this huge network of therapists, mental health clinicians, doulas, people to feed and nourish them. They come in and bring the family warm, nourishing meals. They give them mental health support, circles and community to like just support during this like very trying time in life. So I love what she's doing with that. And her class inside of Apothecary Mama brought one of the students to literal tears. It was that beautiful and powerful. And one of the things that stood out to me, my daughter's 10 now, right? So I'm not exactly thinking about the postpartum time so much, but she was like, postpartum is forever.
Yeah.
And I think everybody that was there was just like, thank you. Like, this can be a challenging journey. And she really spoke about nourishment beyond just the food, but she talks a lot about how the food is really important. And during that time, you want very warming, nourishing foods. And you want to be able to say to your community, yes, make me this soup. Yes, make me this and make me that. Like, don't be afraid to accept help, and how it's also so important to nourish our minds and give ourselves that time, even if it's that 3 minutes you have alone in a bathroom. We all know it's really hard to have a new baby in your family, whether you have a huge family supporting you or not, you know. It was a really beautiful class. It was really powerful and went beyond what I was expecting. And recently we had one of your favorite teachers as well. Missy was in teaching about medicinal mushrooms, which was really great to have her. And yeah,
that's so cool.
And for you Herb Rally listeners, anybody that wants to come in and teach something that you think would be really important for moms to know about herbal medicine, I love bringing other brilliant teachers into the circle.
That's fantastic. So, and that's Mel at theherbalistpath.com, right?
Yeah.
Awesome. Yeah, maybe one of the listeners will take advantage of that. I love that. And shout out Missy Rose. She was one of my teachers at the Arctos School of Herbal and Botanical Studies in Portland, Oregon, along with Grady Proctor. That's right. Well, very cool. Learn more about Apothecary Mamas at theherbalistpath.com. Why don't we do a little rapid fire here? Pre-call, I was asking Mel, hey, what do you want to talk about? And you know what Mel said? She said, herbs. So let's talk a little bit about herbs.
Let's do it.
You could take as long or as little, but I'm just going to say a plant, and then you could say what you love about it. How does that sound? I've never done this before, but
it sounds fun. I'm like, I hope I know the plant.
You will. They're all ones that I've heard you talk about before. So, nice. Hey Mel, what do you love about plantain?
It's everywhere you want to be. It is so abundant. And when in doubt, plantain it out is kind of what we say in our family. And there's so many ways to use this medicine. And it's everywhere. It is so abundant. Like, it's sitting there as your neighbors are spraying it with their nasty Roundup or pulling it up, so frustrated at it being a weed in their perfected lawn. Yet it's like, yo, hey, look at me. I'm medicine for you. I can heal your gut. I can take care of that bee sting. I can draw your splinters out. I can help with your respiratory infection. Like, I'm amazing. Love me.
It's interesting to me that dandelion's like the poster child of the weedy herb, but plantain really should be right up there too, I'd imagine.
I agree. And I really talk about it a lot. So I'm hoping that with those followers, more and more people listen. Like, dandelion's amazing, right? Yeah. I think it's because it's so beautiful. Like, plantain is now beautiful to me because I understand the plant. But Yeah, dandelion has those beautiful yellow flowers. Like, I
Right.
think I was just saying this in a class I was teaching. I had found a quote, and I'm going to butcher the quote, but it was something to the effect of, if dandelion did not grow so wildly and prolifically, it would be something that people would plant and be like, I want dandelions in my yard, but because it's
I
everywhere, they're like, oh, we got to kill this weed.
must be a weed. Yeah, that's hilarious. I
Yeah.
never thought about it that way, but well said. All right.
Right.
What do you love about rosemary?
I love the flavor, the scent of rosemary. I drink rosemary almost every day. It was
Really?
one of the main ingredients in my Where Is My Mind tea at Mountain Mel's because it does a wonderful job of bringing circulation and oxygen up to the brain and is very well known to help improve memory and kind of bring about some clarity and focus. So that is some of the things that I love about rosemary, and the fact that it's just heavenly. Like, it is so delicious. I love it in all the ways. That's the thing about culinary herbs, right? There's so much good medicine inside of them that we don't really think about. We're just like, hey, yay, let's flavor our food. But wait, there's more to that than just flavor. So yeah, that's I love rosemary for that.
I was thinking when I wrote down rosemary, I was like, you know what? I don't feel like I use rosemary too often. And then it occurred to me just now when you were talking, rosemary was actually the very first tincture that I ever made. I remember watching some really old YouTube video, like how do I make a tincture, and rosemary was the one. So that
Nice.
was fun. Also, I got to ask, where's my mind? Is that a Pixies reference?
You know it. Thank you. It's official. We can definitely be friends now.
Yeah. Did you know
I
that?
always,
Oh, go for it. Yeah.
I was just saying, when I ran Mountain Mel's, I always had fun like taking song names and turning them into my tea names, because that whole FDA claims thing, you can't say a lot,
Right.
right? But what a perfect name for that tea that was. I also did Sweet Dreams Are Made of Teas and a bunch of other fun stuff. So yeah.
Yeah, musical puns. And the last time I
Mm.
saw you in person was at a Modest Mouse show, so I know you love
Oh
your
yeah.
music. Yeah, that's right.
I used to
Um,
work in the music industry, so yeah, I either get paid to play outside or get paid to watch live music,
amen.
or
Yeah.
to play with herbs and talk about them.
Um, I'm pretty sure the lead singer of the Pixies lives in Eugene, Oregon. I don't know if you've
I
heard
think
that
that is
or
also true.
yeah.
Yeah.
So little connection there. Well, why don't we do one more? I had a few more listed, but we're getting close to the end. I want to leave room for the other questions, but let's go with ashwagandha.
Hmm. Why do I love ashwagandha? Ashwagandha has held me in ways when I needed it more than ever before. When I was going through those very stressful times, running that product line, not knowing what I was doing, and really overworking myself, ashwagandha was there for me. And it's such a beautiful plant in the way that it works for me and my body. It was also in my Where Is My Mind tea. And I would notice it significantly when I was not taking my ashwagandha. When I would run through the hard times, I'd be like, hard times, and just want to cry. And then I'd get ashwagandha on board again, and it would just be like, I'm here for you, Mel. I will hold you. I will help you be strong. And that is forever fantastic. Ashwagandha is such a powerful herb and yet gentle in the same way. The medicinal benefits to that plant are way longer than your show can handle.
Right.
Yeah, but it's I wish that we could dose the world with ashwagandha. But it's a nightshade. Some people might, not like that.
Touche. The Solanaceae plant family. I want to
Yeah.
say, recalling when I was on your show, I don't remember what brought this about, but when I think of, like, say, cayenne or something, my mouth starts watering. It's like this automatic thing that happens, this reflex. And I remember you bringing up during my interview on your show, you said you could just like look at a jar of dried ashwagandha root and then immediately feel calm, or maybe just look
Mm.
at the tincture or something like that, and it had this like automatic reflex for you.
Did you see it in my face
Is
when you
that
brought up ashwagandha? My
right?
face
Yeah,
went.
totally. Yeah.
I do that with linden as well. Like, linden
Mm,
is one of those plants where it's when I can say the word linden and I
yeah.
immediately picture the tree and its
Mm,
beautiful, loving, I say arms, but they're branches, wrapping around me to hold me and squeeze me and love me and say, whatever I'm going through today, it's going to be okay. And I would see this happen also when I ran my product line. I had a tea called Unfrazzle Your Dazzle, and it was to help
I
calm
remember that one.
and support people, and really lovely tea. And I would like let people smell pre-COVID, right? Smell my tea at this event.
Right.
And instantly I would watch people's shoulders drop and just go, and I'm like,
Yeah.
that tea relaxed you just by smelling it. And I've gotten to that point where I can hold it as well and just be like, oh yeah, it's okay. Whatever is tough right now, which I think a lot of toughness is happening in our world today for many, many people.
Yeah.
We can really look to some herbs to support us in those ways. So
Absolutely. Yeah, linden's another great one. Definitely one of my plant allies as well. Well, I tried this question last time on my last interview. If you were to give a TED talk on anything, what would it be? What would it be about and why?
Ooh, herbally speaking, what would it be about and
You know
why?
what? We could even go outside of herbalism if you want.
Yeah, right. That's
But
what I talk about all day. I think I would want to talk about how herbs aren't an instant fix pill and how one herb is not going to treat every single person the same way, and that it's bigger than that.
Yeah, that seems to be a lot of your work lately. I've heard you mention that a few times in various posts and whatnot. So you seem to be very, very passionate about that. Like pills. You have some class called like pills, not herbs, or
from
something.
Pills to Plants.
From pills to plants. That's right. I butchered that, but well, awesome. Thanks for sharing that. Couple more questions. I have to ask, why does every household need an herbalist?
Goodness, so we can make this world a better place. So we are relying less on pharmaceuticals so people can feel empowered, so they can save their families money, so they can heal themselves and their children, so we can have deeper connection to nature, right? Just a few things. That was more rapid fire style. The rest I haven't done a very good job at rapid fire.
No, that's perfect. I will say this, dear listener. I want to say it was either your last episode or one of your last few episodes. You actually have like a full 30 minutes on this. Am I correct on that? Yeah.
I think it was a couple months ago. About herbs a lot, so it's highly totally likely I talked about that. I do think it would make this world a much better place in so many ways. Absolutely. Maybe introduce more compassion too, kindness. That's right. Calm.
Very good. Well, I've already said this a few times, but be sure to go subscribe to the Herbalist Path on your podcast player of choice. Probably the one you're listening to this episode on right now, actually. Where would you like to send folks to learn more about you and your work?
Theherbalistpath.com. You can learn all the things there. You can follow me on all the places. I'm at the Herbalist Path. And if you're up for it, the Holistically Healthy Family Summit is coming up in late February, early March. So.
Well, this has been a lot of fun, Mel. I learned some new things about you. You've inspired me, and I'm sure you inspired the audience as well. So I really appreciate it. Do you have any closing thoughts before we wrap up and get out of here?
Mason, thank you so much for having me on your show. I adore you and watching everything you're doing with Herb Rally and everything you're doing for the world of herbal medicine. You are magnificent at it, and I'm so grateful that the world has you and your voice to shout this stuff out. So thank you.
Oh man, that made me feel amazing. Thank you, Mel. Yeah. I appreciate that. Well, this was a lot of fun. We'll definitely have to do a round 2 at some point. But in the meantime, dear audience, please go check out theherbalistpath.com and we'll see you in the next episode of the Herbalist Hour.
Bye.
And that's going to do it for today's episode. Thanks so much for listening to the Herb Rally podcast. If you'd like to hear more from us here at Herb Rally, we now have a text message community, believe it or not. Basically, it's just updates from us. We send about 1 to 7 texts per week, notifying you about new events, videos, courses, podcasts. You get the idea. It's pretty much like our email newsletter, just in text form. So if you'd like to receive text messages from Herb Rally, just text JOIN, that's JOIN, to the number 541-256-2895. Again, that's JOIN to number 541-256-2895. And to stop receiving text, that's easy too. Just text STOP to the same number. It'll opt you out immediately. Okay, thanks again for listening. Have a great rest of your day.